Hi everyone, this is Mari Craig, and you're listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show, a podcast where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives one small step at a time. For the past 6 odd years, I've taken a special interest in nutrition and I've changed the diet of my family on its head. But as I've dived deeper into the world of nutrition, I have learned that health is so much more than just what we put on our plate. This is why on this podcast we will be talking nutrition, mental health, being in alignment, holistic health care, self care, raising children, and more. We will also be hearing stories of women's journeys to overcome trauma and what it has taught them on the way. When we share our stories, we realize we are not alone and that things can change for the better. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey as I explore what health and wellness truly encompass. If you like what you're hearing, please consider rating the show with a 5-star rating and sharing it with your friends. It really makes a big difference. Now, on with today's show.
Hello and welcome to the Small Steps to Wellness show with me, your host, Mari Craig, where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives one small step at a time. Today, I'm really excited because I've got Nicola Packman with me. She's a nutrition coach. And I found Nicola through the Culinary Medicine Institute, where I am studying culinary medicine. I seem to have been studying that for ages because I'm dragging my feet. But she finished her studies a while back. And she put up a post in our Facebook group and said, look, I've set up an Instagram account. I'd love to engage with you all there. And so I went on, followed her, and there's so much really, really good and easy to understand advice there. And then I learned a few things about Nicola. So I messaged her the other day. I said, look, I really want you to come on and talk to us and share your story because, this season I want to have a bit more sort of stories and conversations that you could all hopefully relate to. So I'm not going to say anything more than that, but just say welcome to the show, Nicola.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for just literally going, yeah, that's fine, I'll come on.
Do anything.
It's brilliant. It's fantastic. I think when you said you'd finished this course, I thought, bloody hell, I need to crack on and get my stuff done. But then it's a bit tricky. We spoke just before we hit record about you need to actually sit down and have proper time on your hands to focus, because the culinary medicine college that we're studying with, it's no sort of walk in the park, easy,
Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah.
What's
it
it
felt
like
like
for
I was
you?
doing a degree over again. Like,
Yes.
yeah, I actually think my final project was longer than my dissertation for my degree.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely meaty. It's great, but yeah, it takes a lot.
Yeah. And what was your final project on?
MS, nutrition and MS, actually.
Fantastic. Well, let's dive right in there because I didn't want to say that, but actually I guess, do you say you have MS or
Yes,
you
yeah.
have MS? Because it's not something that goes away, is it?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Could you share a little bit about what it actually is? Because it's an autoimmune disease, but what is MS actually?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it's an autoimmune disease. So essentially, with anything autoimmune, it's where your immune system starts to attack itself in particular areas of the body. And with MS, it's your central nervous system. So it's your brain and your spinal cord. And essentially what it does is it attacks the myelin sheath, which is essentially the kind of fatty insulation around your nerves. So that will then cause inflammation within the area. And that inflammation then, once it kind of heals itself, can form scars. Hence, so sclerosis is scars. And it's essentially, you kind of have multiple scars all over your brain and spinal cord and things. And it's very individual how it affects people, because essentially it's a bit Russian roulette with the area of the brain that your immune system is attacking at a particular point in time. So wherever that lesion forms will dictate what symptoms that can cause or how that relapse manifests itself. So essentially with MS, there's different types of MS, which people may not realize. So the most common type, which is the type that I have, it's called relapsing remitting MS. So essentially you have relapses where obviously new kind of inflammation and lesions are formed, and then you go into a period of remission where the disease isn't necessarily active, but you can still during that period kind of deal with the symptoms that are left over from kind of previous relapses. But yeah, so that's the type that I have, but I've been in remission for over 5 years now, and yeah, I've got to the point, fortunately, which obviously I'm sure we'll discuss today with all the sort of things that I've been doing, that I'm now asymptomatic, so I no longer deal with the symptoms of previous relapses that I had been previously. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell.
That was a really good explanation. And you say multiple, what did you say again? Multiple
scars. So yeah,
scars,
essentially
exactly.
sclerosis is just a posh word for scars.
Multiple scars, many scars.
Yeah.
I like that, but that explains it really well. When did you get this diagnosis then? How long have you had it for?
So I was diagnosed about 10.5 years ago now. So yeah, I was only 25 at the time. And yeah, it's definitely been a journey. And obviously it's, as the saying goes, a game of two halves. Obviously 10 years, 5 years, I've fortunately been completely in remission. And then the first 5 years were where it was probably the most rocky for me, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say I would imagine, but actually I'm not sure I can imagine. How does it get to, how do you kind of think, oh, something is not right, I go to the doctor? Like, what symptoms did you have in the beginning? Do you remember?
Yeah, so I think, looking back, I think I probably had it for about 2 years before I ended up getting diagnosed. So it had started with things that I hadn't pieced together, and it wasn't enough to go to the doctors for. So it was things like pins and needles, or I'd get like burning sensations on sort of the skin, or I had this thing which is called Lamite. So essentially, when you look down, you get almost like an electric shock sensation down your spine, and all those sort of little niggly things, I'd say, which weren't never really enough in and of themselves to go to a doctor for and be like, well, I've got this. And then the thing that ultimately caused me to go to a doctor I went blind in my right eye. So yeah, going back to the point earlier where it's Russian roulette where the scars form. So with that one, that was where the inflammation goes on the optic nerve. And for me, it happened right across the middle. So I just lost all vision in my right eye. So I woke up one day and just, yeah, couldn't see.
And you laugh.
Yeah. Well, I do now, because it's, I mean, it was very bizarre at the time. I kind of didn't, yeah, it took a while. It took me 4 days to go to the doctor for it, in fairness, because I was going through quite a stressful period. I was going through a breakup and all those types of things, and I just thought, oh, it's stress, it'll be nothing. But yeah, I mean, I guess when I look back now, it is bizarre, but that's definitely something then that forces your hand and forces you to go to a doctor, and that's where you then piece everything together and go, so that's what this is all about. Yeah, so then kind of went through the process of diagnosis, which took about 4 months in total to get to the point of being diagnosed. And yeah, so my journey began.
Wowee. 4 days though, going blind on one eye. Why do you think, and is it a women particular thing, I wonder, why do you think we don't just go to the doctor with these things? Because in hindsight now, I might have been the same. I might have waited a couple of days,
yeah,
and then go,
well, that's it. I think for me, you kind of don't want to make a fuss.
yes, exactly.
Kind of all that very, stoic, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. And I think, as I say, because I had other stuff going on at the time, like, literally, so just for a bit of context, I'd broken up with my boyfriend, a long-term relationship, and the day I went blind was the day I was moving out of our house. And so I just thought it's probably just stress. And obviously with the optic neuritis, it causes pain. So I had pain in and around my eye, which I just thought was a headache. And so I thought, it's probably, like a bit migraine-y, a bit stress. And I think, yeah, it was almost like I needed to wait to see oh, is it something, you know? And it kind of, then you feel justified. I mean, admittedly, when I went to the doctor, she did say to me, she was like, are you always like this? I think she was very shocked that I'd waited that long, which then makes you think, oh, maybe it is weird. But, you know, like you say, I probably would do the same. Like, I don't think, it's not, I'm not advocating it. It's definitely not the thing to do, but I think people do. You just kind of try and get on with it and think, yeah, let's just see what happens.
Yeah, I guess you don't want to take up space from people who really need it. And then
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh gosh, how did things progress for you from there? And also, I suppose the other question is, did you have any knowledge about MS sort of before this?
No, absolutely nothing. I'd heard about it, but I didn't really know what it was. And yeah, it was a very quick learning curve. So I think, as I say, the diagnosis took 4 months, but as soon as I'd gone to the doctor for my eye, I got referred. She told me that I immediately needed to go to the hospital. And that's where they started. And they said to me at the time, they just said, we think you've got inflammation of the optic nerve. We need you to come back tomorrow. So that night I'd Googled inflammation of the optic nerve, as you do. And then everything that came up was all about MS. So I think apparently a lot of the time it is optic neuritis or inflammation of the optic nerve, which leads to a diagnosis of MS. Because I assume people are probably in a similar position where you have little niggly things that probably in and of themselves wouldn't necessarily be enough. Whereas, as I say, generally speaking, visual loss you can't really ignore for too long. Yeah. So I then, so from that point, I knew, even though it took 4 months to get the diagnosis, I knew. So that's then when you start looking into it and you start, that was my journey of learning about it, really. But yeah, prior to that, I didn't know anybody had it. You kind of hear of people having it, but yeah, absolutely didn't know anything about it. And it's all been a bit of a learning curve. And I think the challenge is sometimes, as I say, while everyone has MS, everyone's version of MS, for want of a better description, is slightly different because of how it evolves, where potentially their lesions may form can lead to different experiences for them as well. So there's kind of no one size fits all either. So it's a journey of learning about it in a theoretical sense of an illness, but then it's also learning what it means for you and what your MS is like, basically.
Yeah. And that's quite important, I suppose, to also shed a light on this now, that this is your story and other people's stories might be completely different.
Yes, exactly.
So whatever works for them might be different. I mean, there are some commonalities here, but yeah, it manifests in different ways. But what happened then? Do you go to the hospital and they say, okay, you got this, and then how do you manage to see again? What happens?
Yeah, so I was put on high dose steroids, which cleared up the vision. It was almost literally like a curtain lifting. Like I'd gradually get a little bit of vision at the bottom, and then it would come back. So that took about 3 months, 3 weeks, and yeah, that's essentially. So obviously, what would have been happening there is that was literally the relapse. That was where the inflammation was, and then it's as the inflammation is healing itself that then everything comes back. So yeah, and then that was kind of my journey, really, with various different relapses over the years. I'd had a few different types of treatment which worked for a period, and then they'd kind of get to a point where they'd stop working, so then I'd need to kind of try a different route and a different treatment. And yeah, it was kind of lots of different relapses. So for me, as I say, I've had optic neuritis. That was the worst one, but that was where I had total vision loss. I've had optic neuritis twice more, once again in my right eye and once in my left eye, but they've not been as bad. I still had some vision, but the vision is just kind of quite blurred and things. Or I did get, so previous experiences with pins and needles were a bit intermittent. Whereas I did have one relapse where I had pins and needles in both my hands for a whole month. And at that point, I needed to go on additional medication at the time to just deal with the sensation of it. Literally, kind of, you can't really feel anything properly, or obviously I've got a desk-based job, so I was typing a lot. And if you ever get pins and needles in your foot, you sat on your foot for a bit or whatever and it's gone to sleep, and when you stand on it while you still, that intense sensation is essentially what I had every time I needed to type or to do anything. And that, so while probably clinically the where I lost my vision was probably the worst relapse for me personally, that experience with my hands was the worst. And that was the one that kind of led to me to say, no, I need to change my treatment and just go a lot harder on my treatment. And then that's where I started to get to the point where I was like, I can't continue down this road. I want to stop this, and I want to get better, and I want to start looking after myself more. So that was definitely the start of that second part of the journey.
Oh, I'm just imagining, I can't stand pins and needles, and obviously that I know the sensation. You sit and you put the foot down and you just like, I can't actually put my weight on it.
Yes, exactly,
like
that
collapse. Wow. Was there at any point, was nutrition something that you were aware of, or was there something you were told about, or how does this then come about that you go, okay, this has got to be the route?
So absolutely not. It was never anything either just I myself took a particular interest in, and it's absolutely never been spoken to me. My sort of clinical team have never ever once mentioned nutrition to me whatsoever. So it kind of came about quite organically, really. I was looking for something to do in lockdown. So I live alone, I live by myself. It's lockdown, it's very lonely times. And I thought I need to do something slightly more constructive with my time than making TikToks, which I lost a lot of my life to. And and I can't even remember how I came across it, but I saw an advert for the Culinary Medicine College, and I thought, that could be, it gives me something to do, and perhaps then I can use that to try and help manage my MS. And again, I didn't really have that much of a passion for it at that point. It was something to do and could be useful, but it was actually then, once I'd started studying it, I became hooked. I was just fascinated. There's so much that I believe really passionately we should be taught in schools. Children should be taught in schools about these things. And there's so much. And then and I think that really started my journey. Then obviously I started to make the changes that I was learning about on the course. Kind of key things is obviously managing inflammation and looking after your gut health. And then I started to feel better, and it was all these types of things. And I think when, as well, just through studying the course, it was learning about how the body functions and its ability to heal itself and to look after itself. And it almost kind of gave me this newfound respect for my body, for want of a better description, and kind of thinking, if it can do that, in the right conditions, if I look after it, what can happen? And so, then I've kind of got really quite into my fitness and into exercising, making sure I go for walks regularly, and then there's all these different things I do meditation, I do Reiki, I do all the, it kind of was one core thing that I started, and it's just expanded into kind of a general world of wellness, for want of a better description.
No, I absolutely, I hear you. I mean, I do not have an autoimmune disease or anything like that, but I too got into nutrition, but a bit of a different route. And I signed up to the college because I wanted to kind of just go deeper. But that also for me has been a starting point. Food has been a starting point, and now it's just all of these other things that I'm learning about. And it's just, as you said, the body is able to heal itself, but it needs the right conditions for that
Exactly.
to be possible. And kind of the society we live in, the world we live in, and the stress we're under, there's absolutely no wonder that we are struggling to heal or to just be well.
Oh, completely agree. I think it's everything. I think, yeah, a lot of stress. I think it's also diet culture, I think, has got a lot to answer for. I'm really, really anti diet culture. And I think a lot of the narrative has been skewed, and it's all about how you look. So a lot of the narrative about nutrition is, how do you lose weight? How do you do this? Whereas actually it should be a lot more focused on how you feel your best, how you are healthy. And the weight, since changing my diet, I've lost 2 stone. The weight loss comes anyway if it's going to happen, but it absolutely shouldn't be intentional. It's never been my driver. I've never tracked my calories. I don't track my calories now. I don't do any of this. But it's, yeah, I think it's society in terms of, yeah, just the way that we are living, but also, yeah, a lot of the culture that we're in, that it is all about a certain aesthetic.
Yeah, no, I mean, oh gosh, we could go on and on about this. I the first time, hang on, it was 2016. So I had a 7-month-old baby and a 3-year-old. And I was breastfeeding the youngest at the time, and I did my first sort of cleanse because I'm affiliated with this company. They got these cleanses, and the whole idea is, I mean, you can lose weight if you have any weight to lose. You probably will, as you say, as a byproduct. But the whole idea is to kind of just clean up your diet for a little bit, focus on your sleep, focus on your movement, focus on your hydration, focus on just eating really, really well. And I thought, I just want to see how I'll feel after. And yes, I did lose weight, but that wasn't the point. I felt so much clearer in my mind, and so much more alert, and so much more like I functioned so much better. And I thought, this is fantastic. And over the years, I've done several of these sort of cleanses. I don't like the word because it's been used in such a wrong way by so many people, in my opinion. But yes, the weight's come off, and then I didn't have loads. I had, let's say, if I wasn't sort of careful back then, I would easily have, yeah, I don't know, 10 pounds more than I felt happy with. And now I feel like I'm eating everything I like because what I like has changed.
Yes,
Does that make sense? Yeah. And
it
then
absolutely does.
You lighter, but you feel just better in yourself in general. Just your mind, your body, everything just feels better. That's what the focus should be. I mean, gosh, raising, I guess especially girls, but even boys, we have to stop talking about mummy's on a diet, or I can't eat that because that takes me over my limit, or whatever bullshit, excuse my French. We are trying to sort of we should just be a little bit mindful about how we talk to each other about these things, because it could be so detrimental. And as you said,
absolutely,
look after yourself, and it went anyway, and you're happier because you got a different why. Your why isn't
yes,
I lose weight. My why is I want to feel better and I want to stay in remission.
yeah, exactly. And if over the years I've done all the I've done the 5-2 diet, I've done the Special K diet. I don't know if anybody remembers that from ages ago. Just through normal being a young woman. I don't know if I can still call myself that anymore, but a young woman who was like, oh yeah, I want to lose weight. And I have genuinely never been in as good a shape physically or anything as I have done now, and consistently kept it because I'm not trying. My focus is my health and feeling the best that I can. And then as a byproduct, what happens is your body, because also I think an important thing for people to remember is even if we all ate exactly the same and did the same thing, we would not look the same. Everybody's body is you know, we've got this, they call it, I think, like a set point range where your body is comfortable kind of being. And so essentially I see it as, if you fuel your body well, you naturally will kind of calibrate to whatever that state is for you. And yeah, it doesn't, and it also doesn't feel like effort to me, because the way I eat isn't effort. I think sometimes when you're on a diet and you're like, I'm starving but I can't eat, then that's a challenge. Or when you're forcing yourself to eat stuff that you wouldn't necessarily like to eat because you're trying to lose weight or whatever. But whereas, you know, like you say, when you're used to eating kind of nutrient dense food, your body changes. So I do, you know, there's still, I don't restrict myself. There's nothing I wouldn't eat other than my preferences. But when I have, you know, for example, I don't know, go away for the weekend with the girls and it's, you know, a bit boozy, or you're just eating crap, or you're doing this, I crave vegetables. My body needs it. My body's not used to eating that way anymore. And I think that's part of the biggest thing that people don't realize. I think people are so used to feeling sick and tired that they I don't think people realize how well you can feel. And then when you start on that journey, that's what hooks you in. No amount of looking good in a bikini or anything that you see in the mirror will ever match the feeling of going, I can wake up and I can feel refreshed and I can sleep well and I can manage my stress better, and I'm just an all-round better human. Yes. when you eat well. And that is so much more than what you look like.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for saying this. So it's beautiful. It's hard to be kind of, I see this again and again and again and again, and I try to sort of talk about it. It's the health and the wellness, as in how you're feeling yourself. That's what matters, and everything else will come after. And I've been finding it tricky to mention the whole weight thing, and I know this is totally not the topic of this conversation, but we're going with the flow. but also, I mean, I understand that people want to lose weight. Hell, I've wanted to lose weight for a large amount of my adult life, but I think the sooner we can let go of it and find a stronger why, we are so much better for it. But then you just keep hearing all of these conversations going, oh yeah, and then just go low fat and track your calories and this, that, and the other, and no, that's however many sins. And I'm just thinking,
oh yeah,
how are we supposed to live like that?
Absolutely. And I think it is, I agree. There's nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight, or there's nothing wrong with wanting or having aesthetic goals. And as I say, I have lost weight and I'm in better shape for it. And I'm not going to lie, I enjoy that I look like that, but it's not my driver. And I think that's the thing, is getting people to trust. And it is diet culture. It's where we've been so ingrained in counting calories or sins or whatever. I don't think people trust, if you just let go of that, don't track your calories. You don't need to track how many vegetables you're eating in a week, track how many different colors you're eating, track how much protein you eat, and let go of all the rest. And I think that's what it is people, we've been so almost indoctrinated to how that is, that people can't trust that the weight bit will happen anyway. And it makes me really sad that it dominates so much of people's minds, or so much of the, because also there can be people who do all those things and they achieve the weight loss that they wanted, and they may have this, you know, culturally celebrated body, but they could feel like shit, or they may not have obtained it in the most healthy way, or, you know, they might look great on the outside, but on the inside they're awful, or their metabolic health could be, you know, absolutely dire. So I think we're celebrating the wrong things. I think celebrate someone who goes, you know what, I take pride in what I eat and how I nourish my body. This is what I look after. You know, I really like us to go, not body positivity. I'd like body neutrality. Why are we even talking about someone's body? Whatever shape or size it is, it's the least interesting thing about us. It absolutely makes no sense. Let's not comment, because even if we comment in a positive way, you don't know what behaviors underlie that body type. You know, there could be somebody who has a really unhealthy relationship with food, but perhaps has, as I say, a culturally celebrated body that you would be like, oh, you're looking great. And that reinforces that negative relationship with food. Let's take the conversation away completely from what a body looks like, and let's focus on, how are you feeling, and your relationship with food. I think that's a big thing that people don't focus on as well, is let's not demonize food. Let everyone, I think they're the two things you can't get away from in this life, is your relationship with yourself and your relationship with food.
Yeah.
They are, any other relationship potentially could end, but you're stuck with yourself and you have to eat every single day for as long as you live.
Yeah.
So those are the two things you need to focus on.
Yeah, so why do we demonize it? Why do we turn that into the biggest enemy, basically? We turn ourselves, we hate on ourselves, and we hate, basically, we have this battle with food every single day. It's exhausting. Yeah.
Exactly.
But what got you out of this situation then? Because you're here now with MS, so back then having all the relapses. And what helped you to let go? Was it literally what you were studying then that helped you realize, actually, there are other things?
So it was studying, and it was also so I don't know if anybody knows about manifesting and Roxy Nafusi, if they've heard of her. So I follow her, and I've done a few workshops of hers, and one of them I did was a body and mind workshop, and that was actually the thing that triggered me to start seeking out something to study and all these types of things. And I think it is a real journey. Go back, it's going to sound quite woo-woo, but it is all about self-love. And I think people think, sometimes conflate self-love and self-care. So self-care is the whole, let's run yourself a bubble bath, or let's do this, or self-love is the bit that comes with the, sometimes it comes with the discipline. It's the discipline of delayed gratification. So it's doing those things that, I'd love to just sit on the sofa and watch the TV now, but actually, no, I need to get up and move my body. And I'm disciplining myself to do that through self-love. And it's that whole sense of, knowing that you're worth feeling well. And it's understanding that we've, as I say, we've got so conditioned and so used to feeling really tired, or we glamorize busyness and stress. How many people are like, oh God, I'm so hectic, or oh, I worked really late last night, or oh, got to be up early for an early meeting. And it's almost celebrated that that's what success is. And you're like, oh, they must have a really good job, they must have a great life, rather than going, no, actually having someone who goes, no, I'm prioritizing going to bed early so I can sleep, and I'm doing this. And I think it's kind of all fed into each other. As I say, that the nutrition course started it for me, but it's all of those things. And I think the biggest thing is the mindset piece, and you have to get over that, whether that be in terms of, specifically with food, your relationship with food and all those types of things, but also just understanding that you're worth feeling well. You're worth it, but also giving yourself a bit of a kick up the arse, for want of a better description, to go, you're worth feeling well, but no one owes it to you. You've got to do it for yourself. You've got to claim your health. You've got to take responsibility. Only you can get you there, and it was a little bit of that for me as well, is a sense of, this is only going to go one way if I don't stop and start taking care of myself. And it is a challenge when you've got a chronic health condition, because no one really speaks to you in the way that it's possible to start to feel better. It is almost like, so you got this, good luck, and off you go. Whereas actually kind of taking that ownership and thinking, do you know what, it might not be my responsibility that I'm in this situation, but it's my responsibility to get me out of it. And that's what you have to do. It's that mix. And that's where the self-love piece comes in, where it's not all the nice stuff. It is having those really honest conversations with yourself and giving yourself that kick up the bum when you need it, or whatever, but knowing that it's because you are worthy, and your body deserves respect, and your body deserves to be treated well. And yeah, I think for me that was what started it all for me, is having that sense of accountability for myself, but also understanding my self-worth almost, and meaning that I'm worth feeling well.
Yeah, I think this is segueing me into this other question I wanted to ask you. And just for all the listeners, you're not gonna worry about this, but I've got no light on in my room and I can't see you.
It's probably for the best.
So let's just turn the light on. But this is so important. I keep saying this to people I talk to. A coach that I used a while back, fantastic woman. She has this podcast, and I think it was in one of her episodes. She said, "No one's coming to save you."
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds so harsh. If you're just like, "Oh, thanks very much." But actually, once you realize that, it's a bit of a, "Oh, crikey." And also, okay, roll my sleeves up.
Yeah.
I've got to do it myself.
And that's absolutely it. Big girl pants on, off you go. There's things that you can do, and there's people that can help you and support you along the way, but ultimately it's on you to get you where you want to be.
Yeah. And I think the sooner we can, I mean, it's easy to say this, and it's especially, I suppose it's hard to do, like, but the sooner we can get out of this victim mentality, because surely, I mean, I'm saying surely, but potentially you will have been in this situation as well, where you go, well, great, lucky me, what a hand I was dealt, and you'd be right.
Yeah, and I think that's it, is knowing. I think part of what I did kind of assume this sick person identity a little bit, because I was like, well, I'm sick now, that's it. But yeah, and I think you do have to get to that point where you go, well, why not? Yeah, rather than why me. It is just the way that it is. But also there's, from my perspective, there is far worse people in far worse scenarios than I'll be. So yeah, it's definitely not that. But yeah, you just need to realize it's the hard truth of, I think a lot of wellness can seem quite woo-woo and all very lovey-dovey, but this is the flip side where it needs to come from, is just that outright determination and accountability to go, no, this is on me now, this is my responsibility. For me, okay, I had MS, or have MS, but okay, the game just got harder to play. That's it. No matter what your circumstances are, that's all it is, and you just need to find another way to play it. If we were talking about games, assuming I don't really play many games, but you go up a level and you need to find a way to do it, and that's all it is. I'm playing the same game as everybody else, and we're all playing the same games, and everybody all has different things. Like your circumstance, your game will be harder to play than mine, in the sense that you have children. I don't have children, so I look after myself. But that doesn't mean that you could sit back and just go, well, I've got children, so I can't do it. It's like, no.
Oh, but I tell you what,
have to find a different way to play it. You can't play the game the same way that I play the game, because you have children to deal with, but also there's certain things that maybe you couldn't play the same way as me. And that's what I think everybody needs to realize. And in terms of getting out of that victim mentality, is whatever your circumstances are, cool, the game's just got harder to play, let's find a way. And it takes a little while, it's not a switch of as I say, I was probably 6 or 7 years into my MS journey before I started doing this. So it's not oh, you've got MS. Oh, okay, off I go. You know, it's been a while, and it does take time, but it is understanding, right, how do I navigate this? And it is that personalized element. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with from a wellness space, particularly because a lot of the narrative is diet culture, and it's this, and it's like, just eat less, move more, or eat this way, or do this exercise. And what you have to understand is there's certain principles that apply to everybody. You know, for example, going back to the earlier point of trying to have a variety of fruit and vegetables in your diet, for example. So that is the principle that everyone needs to apply, but you need to find the way to apply it that works for you. So, you know, how, based on your circumstances, your lifestyle, your preferences, everything. I can't say to anyone from a nutrition perspective, this is how I eat, and therefore this is how you should eat. It should be, I can help to educate people on the basic principles that it should have, you know, kind of a balanced meal composition or whatever. How you make up that meal is up to you. You know, for example, it's really important to make sure you get protein with breakfast. Some people might have the lifestyle where they can make a lovely, delicious omelette for breakfast and they just do this. Somebody else might need to whack a smoothie in the blender and put some protein powder in to get their protein for the principle is still the same. Me too. You'll get, I have no excuse, but I'm just lazy. But yeah, and it's, the principle is still the same, is you're getting your protein in your breakfast. Tick. How that works for you is based on your circumstances. Same thing with exercise. So I go to the gym and I lift weights and I do that 3 to 5 times a week, and I have a personal trainer because that fits in with my life circumstance. There might be other people who can't do that, or don't like, that's not the type of movement that they enjoy, or they do whatever. So find something, free Pilates instructions on YouTube, or, you know, HIIT in your living room, or whatever it is. Same principle applies. It's moving your body. It's finding how doing that works for you.
Yeah, and that again is taking that ownership and taking that responsibility, instead of going, well, I can't do that, doesn't work for me. I don't enjoy that, so I'm just not going to do it. About you said about you know, playing the game and everything. I mean, I've certainly you know, I feel almost a bit ashamed to say it now, but I've certainly had this whole, well, society is not made for mums to be having, you know, children and working. So, well, great for me. And, you know, while sat in my lovely big house and actually not needing to work financially. So it's been, but so I've had to kind of understand, you know, get out of this victim mentality. But I had a conversation with my eldest daughter who was wondering why, when she's so much healthier than her younger sister, why she still has more sort of gut issues, and it's not issues as such, but sort of more niggles than her younger sister, who doesn't eat as healthily, who kind of thinks she can get away with. I mean, she went to the pub with a friend the other day. She came home and she said, I had pizza and chips, no veggies, and she was like celebrating. And I said to my eldest, I said, look, this is to do with how you started your life on antibiotics, basically. But please know that you were dealt a different hand of, you know, cards. But what you do now is going to serve you so much better in the long run. You just have to work slightly harder now. But you are doing exactly what you should be doing. You're doing brilliantly. And it's just, as you said, we're playing the same game, but with different starting points.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's what everybody kind of needs to realize is, you know, it is working out what happens to you. And yes, sometimes it'd be different, and sometimes it's just shit.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think that's also it, is no one owes you anything. And yeah, sometimes it is unfair, and sometimes it's rubbish, and it just is. And, you know, I think, again, speaking back to the culture, is everybody almost wants everybody to fix something or to do, and sometimes that just can't be done. So you just have to go, right, what can I do? What is within my circle of influence? What can I try and achieve or try and accomplish or do this? And yeah, I think it's about kind of not focusing too much on what other people are doing, because I think that comes back to, you know, or again to the weight loss thing, be like, well, I eat all right, why don't I look like her, or why don't I look like him, or why don't just focus on you. Do you look better than you did before you started this journey, if that's what your goal is? Or are you eating well, or are you doing this? Don't focus on other people.
No, I know it's yeah, it's not going to lead you anywhere good, really. So top tip of the day, I suppose. I would like to know, you know, when you study, because I've also completed this unit on immunity. Was there at any point when you were studying, though, because I'd like to know how kind of, at what point you didn't start going, oh my God, was there like a, you know, did like the needle drop and you go, whoa, no, not the needle, the penny even. Can you tell I haven't slept properly? And you just go, oh my gosh, that's it. Was there anything where you were studying that made you think, wow, yeah, I'm on the right track. This is totally what I'm going to be implementing for myself, and I need to talk to other people about it. Was there a specific moment? Do you remember?
Yeah, so I think there was two. I think one was about inflammation. So obviously where we were learning about like the seed oils and you know, which are in absolutely everything at the moment. Any kind of like processed foods or ready meals or anything like that will likely be made with seed oils, because they're cheap. And I think it was understanding that and thinking, oh wow, like so that was the first change that I implemented, is trying to, and I wouldn't say avoid, limit that, and kind of have more home cooked meals and those things. And then it was particularly, yeah, like the immunity module and learning about gut health is, for me, those are the two key takeaways, is kind of trying to help manage your inflammation, but also, yeah, the importance of gut health. And I think, because again, this comes back to me, to why these things should be taught in schools, is, you know, everybody kind of knows, oh, you should eat your vegetables, you know, it's always taught, oh, you should eat your vegetables, but no one's really ever explained why, like, oh, vegetables are good for you, why,
and who asks kind of why questions, right?
Pardon?
Who asks why questions?
Yeah, exactly.
To answer those why questions, because my youngest daughter, she would certainly go, but why should I do that? She wants an explanation, and actually, yeah, why should we eat our vegetables? It's so important.
Yeah,
then you go, oh yeah, okay, fine, that makes sense. I might do that then.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think, yeah, gut health for me is huge, you know. And obviously there's that quote that came from Hippocrates like 2000 years ago, whenever it was, that all disease starts in the gut. And I really believe that. And interestingly, so I obviously have been feeling a lot better since. And about a year ago, I had a call with my MS nurse. So I see her every 2 years, and it was quite a weird call, because I was like, I've literally got nothing to talk to you. I was like, I feel absolutely fine. I was like, I have no symptoms whatsoever. I don't have fatigue anymore. I don't have pain anymore. I was like, I've literally got nothing. And she was like, what have you been doing? And I told her about the course and that I was studying, and, you know, and she was like, right, what are the biggest things you've been doing? And again, I mentioned the inflammation and then the gut health. And interestingly, she'd said to me, so yeah, this was last year, 2022, and she was saying that the MS Trust, the charity, have like a conference every year, and they hadn't, last year was going to be their first one since COVID. And she'd mentioned that something, you know, in the 2019 conference, gut health was sort of mentioned a little bit, whereas in this one last year, when they'd come back, 70% of the agenda was on gut health and the importance of gut health for MS. So yeah, that's a big thing. But also, interestingly though, when I was explaining this to her, she said that she'd have to tell my consultant, because he didn't believe in complementary medicine. And I was like, food isn't complementary medicine. Food is food. But yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing for me, was like, oh my God. And it is learning how everything, you know, I kind of got this newfound respect for my body, you know, and thinking, obviously I'd had my treatment, and I went quite aggressive with my treatment, and I sort of thought to myself, I need to give, you know, I'm not anti-medicine or anything like that, and I'm not suggesting that, you know, nutrition can necessarily replace medicine in all circumstances. I think certainly in certain aspects there is, but yeah, I kind of thought to myself, I need to look after my body as best it can to give the medicine the best chance of working. And it's kind of putting those two together and saying, if I can do certain bits to get my baseline health to a certain point through nutrition, I owe it to myself and to my body to do that and to support it in the best way that I can. And then the medicine can target the bit that it needs to target. And that was kind of the piece of the puzzle for me that all kind of brought it all together.
I think that's a really important point, because yeah, medicine has its place. And I said on a different podcast a while back that this has been the year of antibiotics for me, and bloody hell, it's been a journey. And before, sort of, I said this year, I said in 2022 and until now, and it, for the most part, I think had to happen, unfortunately. And I've been, no pun intended, gutted about it. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of sad. I'm at this stage where my joy in life is to embarrass my children and make stupid jokes, so I have to grab an opportunity to do it. But I guess the difference between sort of how I react to things like that now and what I would have done before is that now I have the tools to know how to kind of get better from that again, because obviously it ruins your gut bacteria when you go on them. But the knowledge and the fact that I know, look, I can take matters into my own hand, again, take responsibility, feel empowered. And I know, okay, so, you know, you whack up the probiotics, you have all the prebiotic food, you go full blast on fruits and vegetables, anti-inflammatory foods, your omega, all of those things. And it's just a good feeling to know I needed to have this medication, but I can also now add in all the good stuff to help me then function better again. It's a good feeling to know that you can take matters into your own hands.
Absolutely. And I think we've probably been a bit spoiled in this country, like with the NHS, that it gives everybody that sort of safety net and comfort blanket. They go, oh, I'll just go to the doctor, or I'll just get antibiotics, I'll just get tablets, and that's fine. And it's understanding, no, there's things that you can do, or even things now, like I say, I'm not anti-medicine, but I try and avoid taking it unless it's absolutely necessary. But now, again, with what I've learned, you know, over the winter months, for example, if I feel myself, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm feeling, I'm like, right, okay, get your vitamin C, get your zinc, get this. And that's what I tend to do now. And then obviously, if I was to come down with it, then I'll take that cold and flu medicine or anything. But I go, right, first I'm going to try and stop myself from even getting to that point, you know. And it's I think it was Hippocrates again, look at me with all my quotes, but he said something like the best form of medicine is teaching people how not to need it. And that, I think, is what this knowledge and nutrition has done, is it's going, absolutely not anti-medicine, and it has its place, and it will be needed, and take it absolutely if you need to, but understand how you can stop yourself from getting to that point. And like you say, then is taking that responsibility and that ownership and using that knowledge to actually implement that and stop yourself from getting to that point.
Yeah. Oh gosh, you sound like me. I'm just like, you need your vitamin C and your zinc and your magnesium and
it's all true though. It's all true.
Yeah. I must sound like a broken record sometimes. I was like, here, I've got this vitamin C. How will you give it a go? No, I think this is so inspiring to hear, you know, how you are just dealing with everything. And I suppose, you know, you are not your illness. You are you, and you just happen to, as you said, have been dealt this hand, and and it's allowed to say, well, this is a bit shit, and then just go, okay, but now what do I do about it, right? Get to the point where you go, okay, I can choose to be this illness, or I can choose to actually move on a little bit from here and not let it define me. So
yeah, absolutely. And learn from it. You know, I'm like, well, this happened to me. Yeah, okay, it's a bit shit, but actually not why did this happen to me, but what is this teaching me, and what is this, you know, and to the point now, I actually weirdly I feel quite lucky. I feel really lucky to have had, because I don't think anyone really values their health until they get to a point where they are made to. And so I feel like I've been really lucky in that I've had something that has made me value my health, but it's something that I've been able to get myself out of and feel better from. It's not, you know, some people learn the really, really hard way and they end up with, I don't know, a terminal cancer diagnosis, God forbid. So I feel incredibly grateful for my scenario. And I actually genuinely, if you asked me hand on heart, I would not take it away. If someone said to me, we can take away your MS and you won't have it, you've never been diagnosed with it, but everything you've learned and everything you are as a result of it will obviously go, I wouldn't take it away. So yeah, I think I'm very lucky, and that's why I'm really passionate about what I do now. Is I want to try and get that sense in people of valuing their health without them needing to learn the hard way. Don't wait until you get sick. Like, just take it from me. I got sick and I've learned, and I'm just here to tell you now. So yeah, I think that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, and I feel very fortunate to have got into the state that I am, and I feel then almost like a responsibility, because I've had that I need to help teach people almost how they can look after themselves, and how good they could feel, and how it is possible to feel your best self. And even if you are going down a certain route, or perhaps you have certain circumstances or certain health conditions or certain things, it is still possible to recover from that, or to kind of change the trajectory a little bit. And yeah, that's what I'm so passionate about doing now.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for saying all that. That is, I think you're so spot on. And somebody once said to me, trauma and plus wisdom equals triumph.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
gonna steal that one.
Yeah, I think it's so nice, because whatever, you know, we all have stuff happening to us, but if we can take wisdom from it and learn from it, then we can actually turn it into something that serves us. And I hear from a lot of people actually who I've spoken to who have had something horrible happen to them, that they're actually grateful for it. They say thank you for the trauma when they've come through kind of to the other side, and I realize actually this is what it has brought me. Because what a gift that you're now able to sort of pay forward, right? Because had you looked into nutrition, had you looked into all the mindfulness work, or all the, you lift weight, you're such a strong woman. Had you started doing all of those things, if you didn't think, oh, I need to do something for my body, perhaps not, right?
Absolutely, that's it. And that's what you have to see it all needs to be worth something. All of this, you know, the stuff that you're going through it no matter what. So make it count, make it worth something. Even no matter how shit it is, then almost the shitter it is, the more you need to make it count. Like, do something. And yeah, for me now, I am in the best health that I have ever been in my life, and I'm the oldest obviously I've ever been in my life. I am 10 plus years down the line with MS, but I am now the best I can. So don't think that you can't achieve it as well. It's, you know, everyone's ability to feel well is there, but yeah, you just need to take that ownership and that responsibility and give yourself a kick up the bum. But also don't, you know, with that said, it is a journey. Don't beat yourself up if you are struggling, or perhaps you have like down days. You know, it's not a direct linear path. It can be a bit squiggly, and that's absolutely fine. It's just look at the overall direction that you're going in, and yeah, how you overall holistically look at your health. If you have a bad day or a lazy day or a day where you don't eat well, fine, it's just a day. That's absolutely fine. But yeah, it's knowing that overall you're going in the right direction.
And the belief that it's all possible for you.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you so much, Nicola. Honestly, I've loved hearing from you, and I think this will resonate with so many people. Maybe it's also going to trigger a couple of people, but I'm hoping that it's going to after you've been triggered, make you think, oh yeah, maybe I do need to kick myself up a bum and get started. So just want to thank you so much for sharing so willingly with us, and yeah, hopefully speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You've been listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show with Mari Craig. I am passionate about helping mums get their energy back through simple nutritional changes, because we know that if mummy is happy, the family's happy. If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram under @smallstepstowellness, or visit my website smallstepstowellness.info. Speak to you soon.